Everybody, and welcome back to DC Central. In today's video, we're going to be breaking down and reviewing and going over the entire season of Black Lightning Season 3. So if you have not seen this entire season, make sure you go and do so before proceeding with this review, as it will be filled with spoilers. We're going into real deep, spoilerific detail in this video, so let's jump into it. So over the last couple of weeks, I have been catching up on Black Lightning because it's a show that when it first came out in Season 1, I absolutely loved it, and just due to time and things like that, I kind of dropped off in Season 2 just because I found it difficult to keep up on top of it with everything else I was watching at the time. But in the last couple of weeks, I decided, no, let's crack back down with it, let's get on with it, as Season 3 just came to Netflix here in the UK, so I thought, why not, let's just go back to it. And I have to say that catching up with Black Lightning has been an absolute delight, because this show, as I said, I really enjoyed it in Season 1, and I forgot how great this show was, like genuinely great. I don't want to jump the gun too much and say too much, and obviously we're very early on in the review, but I genuinely believe this is probably the best show that DC has on the CW right now, hands down. It's just so good, and I just love pretty much everything about it. But in this video, obviously, I'm just going to be focusing on Season 3, the third season of the show, and this season had a lot going on, so let's just let's just quit all the dilly-dallying and let's just jump into the review. So I want to start off by talking about Cress Williams and his performance as Jefferson. He was absolutely fantastic. Now, I don't really want to talk too much about Jefferson in this review, just because I don't think Jefferson was particularly the standout character of this season or anything, but the reason why I do want to bring him up is because, obviously, this season of Black Lightning was the season that got folded into Crisis, so now we have Black Lightning officially in the Arrowverse. It was not in the Arrowverse before this, but due to Crisis and the Earths merging, we now have Black Lightning taking place on Earth Prime, which does have some issues with continuity and stuff like that in regards to how metahumans were created and stuff like that, but it's stuff that obviously will be explored more and more as time goes on. But what was really cool about Cress Williams and his performance in this season was when he was in Crisis, it's just really fun to see him there interacting with these other heroes, particularly the Flash, because obviously to his knowledge he was the only hero in his world, like he was the only person who he knew, there was no other superheroes around, so it was really cool for him to actually just kind of go into this universe where there are these other superheroes going around, and to him Superman was kind of like a mythical figure, but to him to actually see Superman was really cool. And like I say, he had this really nice bond that was built with the Flash, and he also seemed to have this kind of respect for Oliver, even though he never met him and stuff like that. So I think that Cress Williams, you could tell he was having fun having a part of Crisis, and I'm really excited to see what they do with him going forward in crossovers and stuff like that. Will he be in the next one, or will he have sort of mini crossovers? Because again, I'd love to see him cross over more with the Flash. I think that'd be a really cool one. So it was just really cool to see Cress Williams really have some fun in this season as being a part of the Arrowverse. Now, Nyssa, who has always been a standout character on the show for me, is even better in this season once again. They really go full in with the Blackbird storyline in this one, which I really liked, because Blackbird is a great concept for me. I think that obviously seeing her as Thunder, very early on in the show in the first season was great, but seeing her kind of evolve that and how she realizes that in order to complete her goals and in order to do what she wants to do for Freeland, she can't necessarily be this sort of overly publicized superhero. She has to be a bit more of a vigilante style character, and that's what Blackbird is, and it's really cool to see that. And again, I think that Nyssa, her performance was really good in this. I like the story of her, really trying to help out the people of Freeland, getting these green light metas out of the city, because obviously in this entire season, this entire season, Freeland is on lockdown. To the outside world, they are saying there's a outbreak which has caused the city to be locked down, but in fact it's actually just the Markovians and the ASA have locked down Freeland so people can't get out because they're trying to track down all the metas. And that was really cool for me that Nyssa was getting involved in that storyline and helping out. Also Grace, who is of course Nyssa's girlfriend, she was great in the season as well. They actually gave her some really nice development and some really nice story in this. We find out in the season that she's actually a shapeshifter, she has powers, and that she is actually struggling with that, and she doesn't, we don't actually know really what her full form is at first. We don't know exactly who she is. There's a lot of lies about her. She's kept a lot of secrets from Nyssa, but it goes in a really nice direction. And a lot of people talk about representation on the CW shows and stuff like that, and particularly Supergirl I think really does try to push the representation, but honestly, I've seen someone like DJ Eric also bring this up in his review for season 3, but it's really great to see characters like Nyssa and Grace, because unlike Supergirl, which like I say is very good with representation, it can be a bit heavy-handed sometimes, and it can be a bit almost forced in how they do it. Whereas with Nyssa and Grace, they are just perfect examples of representation on these shows of what they should be, because they're just a couple on the show, and they never talk about it. They never bring it up. It's just there. It just happens, and it's just something you watch, and it's really good in that way, because that, and you know what I like about it as well is that Grace could easily be a character who is there just to serve Nyssa and be, you know, just her girlfriend, her love interest. But that's not the case. They gave Grace so much to do in this season and actually had a role within the team, which was really nice. And then Nyssa, of course, was having multiple storylines going on. So it's just really good representation in this series for these two characters in particular. And I absolutely loved it, because it's the perfect representation of what representation should be on these shows. And we also had Lynn, who was also given a great storyline. I think Lynn is someone who can be a bit underserved in this show, which is a shame because the actress is fantastic. But she got a really great storyline in this season as well about her being addicted to green light. That was really good. She is obviously kind of working with the ASA to try and experiment with the kids and trying to figure out cures and things like that, unbeknownst to her that, you know, the ASA aren't exactly the nicest group out there. But she is experimenting with green light on herself. She's trying out different things on herself, and she ends up getting addicted to that. And this is something that's still going to carry on to next season. Like, I think this could lead to something really interesting in season 4. But it was really nice to see Lynn get a storyline like this, because it really put her in the forefront. Like, she was really a big part of this season, and that was nice to see, especially because the ASA was so engraved in the storyline. To have someone sort of on the front line of the ASA was really good, because the family dynamic is completely shaken up in this season because of how people are split on it. Because you've got Lynn, who is basically on the side of the ASA, but then you've got people like Jeff and Jen, who are just completely against the ASA and stuff like that. So it's nice to have someone like that on the front line, because it just made it a lot more easier to sympathise with her, and also it allowed you to question yourself about which side you fell on. Even though it was pretty obvious that the ASA obviously were evil, it did, you know, it's good storytelling to actually allow you to maybe question yourself on that, and Lynn and her storyline allowed you to do that. And also because she had that addiction storyline, you did feel sympathy towards her as well, and the work she was trying to do, because she was so passionate about it. And Jen really stepped up in this season as well. Of course, sort of towards the end of the last season, that was when they really started to bring Jen into the forefront and give her her powers as lightning. And in this season, she is full on lightning, and she's great. What surprised me most about Jen is how powerful she is. Like, she's genuinely, potentially, the most powerful character on the show. And that was really fun, because I think China Anne McClain can really play this character well. And I think that seeing her kind of experience this growth with her character, it allowed her to do a lot of really cool stuff performance-wise. And also, what the other big surprise for Jen in this season was the connection to Crisis. I didn't expect Black Lightning to be as connected to Crisis as it was, because I thought it was just a thing where Jeff gets involved. And while it is like that for Jeff in a respect, for Jen, in the episode where the antimatter wave swipes across Freeland, she is basically going through this dilemma where she's basically having situations where she's interacting with other versions from herself from the multiverse, and we actually get to see those versions of the multiverse and how they became that version of the character, and that was really nice, really surprising. I didn't expect it to go like that. I thought that it was just going to be a thing, Jeff gets, you know, picked out by Pariah, and that was that, like we saw in Crisis, because that's how it comes across in Crisis. But seeing this from this point of view and from this side was really cool, because again, they actually played a lot more with Crisis than I thought they were going to, and you know, the idea of antimatter being out there in the world was also a big player in the episode as well, so that was really nice. And I think that Jen, her character, she's really central to all of that, so I'm excited to see what they do with her going forward as well. Now, possibly my favourite character in this season was Khalil, aka Painkiller. Now, Khalil's obviously been in the show since season 1, and he's had a brilliant arc throughout this entire series. Seeing him go from Khalil back to Painkiller to Khalil to Painkiller again, it's just really fun, because it allows him to kind of be this character who has this moral ambiguity, and you don't know where he's exactly siding. And with this, when he was Painkiller in this season, he was badass. Like, it was on another level. I mean, I loved him as Painkiller in season 1, where he had like the dreadlocks and stuff like that. He looked awesome. But in this season, he is just an unstoppable Terminator-like machine who is just unstoppable. He could just go around, take out everybody. You know, he has all these different forms of martial arts. He can just take out anybody, and he's like this unsympathetic character from his point of view. But then when you see him as Khalil, and you see that storyline begin to develop, and he starts to come back to reality, you can see that he's kind of this, you know, he's kind of this morally grey character now, where by the end of the season, when he's there with Odell and he shoots him through the back, he just kind of, and he leaves him for Jeff, you know, he said, you know, because Jeff's trying to say to him, don't shoot him, don't do it, you know, you won't be able to come back from it, but he still shoots him. He's like, yeah, it'll be fine. So I thought that was a really cool way to kind of do it, and I'm excited to see what they do with him next season, because Khalil, he's just such an interesting character. Like, he's genuinely one of the best characters on the show, which I didn't expect when he was first introduced, but seeing him as Painkiller, especially in this season, it just puts him in a place now where he could really go in any direction, and it could be really cool. He could go completely evil, or he could go completely good, or he could continue to ride the line and almost be a Deathstroke-esque character, which I think would be a really good move for the show. And a villain I'd like to talk about in this season as well, Gravedigger. He was great. Gravedigger was interesting. He comes in very late in the season, but I don't think it's too bad, because obviously we do know by the end of the season he is still alive, so he's probably going to come back in season 4. But he was great. Like, he came in at the perfect time. He just came in and really gave some new life and new energy. Of course, this is like Jefferson's great uncle, which explains the connection to Jefferson and why he's a stable meta and why Jen is a stable meta, etc. It just makes all so much sense because they have that family lineage of metas. And Gravedigger was just dangerous. And what was cool about him as well is he's one of those villains who, almost like Thanos, or even to relate to the Arrowverse, someone like Malcolm Merlin, he's someone who is very much the hero of his own story. Like, he believes he's doing the right thing. He believes that what he's doing is the perfect course for metas to go down. But obviously, it's not exactly great for everybody, so they have to take him down. But Gravedigger was really great. I was surprised, you know, by how late he came into the season, but he did leave a very big impression. And I was very happy with him. Again, he's not in the season a lot, but I think it's just because, again, they're going to do so much more with him in season 4 when that comes around. So I'm excited to see that, because so far, he's really good. Couple of negatives though. I think, you know, Odell and the ASA storyline was a bit dragged out. I do think that it got to the point where, because Black Lightning is a shorter season than the rest of the Arrowverse shows, it's 16 episodes, which it's good in comparison to the Arrowverse shows, but like to the other ones like Flash and Supergirl, but it is a bit too long still, and I think that this season suffered from that the most than the first 2 seasons, because this season, it gets to a point with the ASA storyline where it's just like, there was one particular episode where I was like, okay, I'm starting to get a bit bored with this now. But it was at that point where they introduced Gravedigger, where that was where I was like, okay, I'm back on board again. So they just about saved it, but it was getting to the point where it was getting a bit slow and a bit meandering and a bit like, I could tell they were dragging out this storyline for a bit too long. Like, I think if this season was like 13 episodes, it would have been perfect, like the first season was. It would have been perfect. But the fact they had to drag it out that 1-2 more episodes before we got to Gravedigger, you know, again, it's not terrible, because again, they do just about save it. It doesn't get to the point where I was like, oh, I'm done with this season, I'm so bored. It wasn't like that. It was just getting to the point where I was like, okay, this is going on a bit too long, we could pick this up a bit. But then they introduced Gravedigger, and it was a whole new element and made it super interesting again. So it's a bit of a two-way thing, but yeah, it's just a bit dragged out for me. And Odell was an interesting character at first, but again, I think he just kind of, he's in it a bit too long, to the point where and he doesn't do much, to the point where I'm like, okay, I'm just kind of bored of seeing it on screen a little bit. But again, he's still a good character and very well acted. And we also got TC and Brandon as well in this season, who, TC I really liked. I thought he was really good. You know, it was cool to kind of give like a little apprentice to Gambi, because Gambi is just an epic character, a god tier character. To give him like a little apprentice was really nice, and he seemed really cool. You know, he has the power to basically just read technology and understand technology. That was really interesting. That's something I've never really thought of before. It's kind of like Cyborg a little bit, but he really focuses on the communication aspect. He isn't really like a fighter or anything like that. But it was really cool to see that, because again, it's kind of a unique power that I haven't really seen done this well in live action before, and the way he was able to connect to Khalil in that way was nice as well. But then Brandon was weird, because I liked him at first when he first came in, but then as the season went on, he just became annoying. Like, he was just one of those characters who, he was so out for revenge against Dr. Jace, and that's all he cared about, and he was just becoming disruptive. He was just becoming, you know, a stick in the mud. He was becoming someone who was a problem for the heroes in a way, because he wouldn't do certain things because he only had his own mission. And it's a shame, because when he first introduced, he was kind of cool. Like, he was kind of a cool character who, and his power is awesome. Like, he's essentially an earthbender. You know, he has these powers to get these powers from the earth, and that was really cool. And the way he's able to combine his powers with Jen are great, because they're kind of polar opposites. So the way they can kind of combine in that way, that was really cool. I just think personality-wise and his story, again, it's just one of the things. It was a bit dragged out to the point where he couldn't go forward, so he just had to keep going and doing the same thing, and that made his character repetitive and annoying, and that was a shame. Hopefully in season 4 they can do a bit more with him and perhaps change him up a little bit, because now that that storyline is over and been brought to a close, he can kind of move on and do something else and go back to the kind of cool character that he was when he first came in. Overall, though, I thought Black Lightning Season 3 was absolutely fantastic. I was so impressed with it. I mean, it just continues to show why Black Lightning is, as I said at the beginning of the video, the best show in the Arrowverse right now. You know, as great as Flash Season 6 has been, I do think Black Lightning Season 3 tops it, and I think that Black Lightning as a show tops all the others as well. No Arrowverse show to me has been this consistent so far. Season 3 is always the point where the shows go downhill, and Black Lightning, I think an argument could be made that this is the best season. For me, not personally, I'd probably have it as the second or maybe the worst. And when I say worst, that's not bad at all. But I do think this season was ever so slightly dragged out, and that's my major complaint with it. Not major, more of a minor complaint, because like I say, it's not a terrible thing. But I probably have it as the least season. But again, my point, I digress. The point is that no Arrowverse show is this consistent, and I think it just shows why Black Lightning's so good. It's just one of those shows that I always love, I look forward to going back to all the time, and now I am super hyped for Season 4 because I cannot wait to see what they do with it, because this season just had so much setup and so much good stuff going forward for the characters, and even within the season itself, it got so much right and so much done that it just opened up all these possibilities, and I cannot wait to see where it goes with it. And also now that it's part of the Arrowverse as a whole, there's a lot of exciting opportunities there as well. So overall, I thought Black Lightning was tremendous. I thought it was really well done, really great, and overall, I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. But what did you guys think about Black Lightning Season 3? If you've seen it, make sure to let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. And as always, guys, if you want to see more DC content like this, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss an upload from me. And hope to see you guys again next time.